So we are officially less than a week away from the 2025 NFL Draft, which means it's time for us to finish up our series, regrading and recapping the Lions draft classes under this new regime in the Brad Holmes and Dan Campbell era. Hello and welcome everyone. If you're new here, my name is Zach Payne, and this is the final part of a four-part series regrading the four draft classes that Brad Holmes has been leading for the Detroit Lions in this new regime as we, build up to the 2025 draft to get a better understanding of how Holmes picks and the type of players he targets and, quite frankly, how he's done as a drafter so far. But real quick, just before we get into the final recap, if I could get you to hit like and subscribe to the channel when notifications turned on, it would be greatly appreciated. It's a very small channel, so if you could take 5 seconds to do those 3 things, I would really appreciate it, and it would really help the channel grow. Now, as always, my friends, we have to look at the context surrounding the draft before we can fully get into it. So the 2023 Detroit Lions were really good. This was a team that came into the season with sky-high expectations, expecting to win a division, break that 30-year curse, and hopefully win a playoff game. Those were the goals. Win the division and win a playoff game, break those 2 curses, and then you could start to build moving forward. So, did they? Yeah, and you guys know, emphatically, yes, the Lions won the division fairly easily. In fact, no one else was that big of a challenge in the division. The Vikings had a bit of a down year in 2023. The Packers were on the rise, but, they were all right. The Bears were the Bears. The Lions would end up hosting the Los Angeles Rams in the first round of the playoffs, narrowly beating them by 1 point to end that playoff drought. And then they hosted the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in the divisional round, beating them as well. And then they lost, unfortunately, in the NFC Championship game that we don't talk about. But the hype had never been higher, the vibes weren't far behind, and the expectation was that one more really good draft class could put this Lions roster over the top. So how'd they do? Round 1, pick 24, Terrion Arnold. I was pretty pleased with how this draft started. Now, before every NFL draft, me and a good friend of mine, we get together, we do mock drafts, and we like to, just like the experts do, we just like to see how many picks we can get right. And that year, I had said the Lions were going to trade up with Miami to pick Terrion Arnold. And when they traded up to pick Arnold, granted, they traded up with Dallas, I was pretty pleased with myself. Now, obviously, you have no reason to take my word on me predicting that. That's just, I don't know, trust me, bro, but you can at least see the video reaction of me, when the pick was made. The Detroit Lions select Terrion Arnold. Hey, I said they would trade up for Arnold. I said 21, they got 24. I fucking called that. Now, as for Arnold himself, he was under a lot of pressure, and he admitted that himself on his TikTok, that, he's a 21-year-old kid coming into a team that has Super Bowl aspirations, and there was a ton of pressure on him to be a big piece of it, considering how weak the Lions were at corner in that 2023 season. So, how'd he do? The best way I can put this is he was good, not quite great, though. Everyone knows at the start of the season, Arnold struggled with the pass interference calls. That was a problem that lingered for probably the first half of the season. And then obviously there were some problems down the stretch, but they weren't nearly as severe. And the most frustrating part of those pass interference calls is a lot of them weren't necessary. Some of them were just downright bad calls. Like there was one against Tampa Bay that was just not a penalty. Like there's nothing else to say about it. But Arnold would also be prone to taking calls where he didn't need to. He was in great position, but instead of turning his head around to make a play on the ball, he would just get a little too handsy at the catch point and he would draw a flag. But as I said, he got better in that aspect throughout the season, and he did a really good job actually in man coverage, press man coverage, difficult assignments. He kept his head above water. Considering he was being put in somewhat comparable situations to what Jeff Okudah faced when he was a rookie, for Arnold to come out of this, again, keeping his head above water and surviving and looking good at times, really good at times, for a rookie corner, that is amazing. And it's a really good omen for his future. I'm really excited to see how he develops in year 2 and, hopefully beyond that as well. He looks like he will be a very solid starting corner. I'm going to give this one a solid B. Round 2, pick 61, Ennis Rakestraw Jr. Okay, this is where the flaws of regrading a draft class just a year after it happens really come into play because Rakestraw, ironically, didn't really play. He was slated to start week 2 against Tampa Bay at the slot corner nickel role and unfortunately just got hurt before he could take the field. And he never got an opportunity like that the rest of the season. He battled injuries and he got used very sparingly throughout the season as other guys stepped up in his absence and played pretty well. Well, unfortunately, yeah, he just didn't see the field a ton. I have a lot of optimism for him going forward. This is a guy that going into the draft, people were even talking about him being the round 1 pick for the Lions at the end of the first round before they traded up. You get him at the end of the second. It was a very good pick. I stand by that. And I think Rakestraw and Arnold should be two very solid starting level corners for this team for a long time. Obviously, Arnold is already there. Rakestraw has a little bit more development to do before he's at that point. But he's going into year 2, where he didn't really play his rookie year, and he's the 3rd or 4th corner on the depth chart. Unfortunately, this recap is brief for those reasons. So I'm going to give this one a grade of a C, but in reality, it's basically an incomplete grade, is how you should look at this. Round 4, pick 126, Giovanni Manu. Okay, you might have picked up on this in the last video, but the Lions love to pick project guys in these middle rounds of the draft. Giovanni Manu, a massive tackle prospect in terms of like his physical size, and he was very athletic coming out of the University of British Columbia up here in Canada. He moves remarkably for a man of his size, but his technique needs a lot of refinement. I'm treating this one the same as the Broderick Martin and Hendon Hooker picks, and to a lesser extent, the Colby Sorsdal pick. I like project guys. I think there is a space for them in the draft, and for a team that has a lot of good starting level talent, you need guys that will eventually be able to supplement them. That being said, I don't like overdrafting these guys in the 3rd, 4th, to an extent the 5th round as well. If you can get projects in the 6th and 7th round, who cares? It's a late round pick that just usually doesn't hit anyway, so you might as well take a swing. Whereas in the middle rounds, you can get guys that can start. And I don't know. I just wish that the Lions would lean into getting more solid contributors that, aren't necessarily sacrificing the long term, but would focus more on the short term as well. Especially for a guy like Manu when no one was going to take him in this range. So I'm giving this one a D+. Round 4, pick 132, Sione Vaki. One of the weirder picks, Vaki was mostly a safety in college, and then the Lions draft him and we find out he's going to be a running back? Huh? This was very odd at the time, and it still sort of is, but the silver lining behind this is Vaki is wicked on special teams. He's a very good special teams contributor from his background as a safety, and, he also caught a fake punt. That was cool. He wasn't really used offensively. That's not his fault. Sonic and Knuckles take up a lot of the running back room, and Craig Reynolds is also a very steady running back 3, but he has legitimate wiggle at the running back position. He's just a project there. That being said, this is the kind of project pick I can get behind. Vaki is a developmental running back that also brings immediate value on special teams. And he should be a solid running back 3 or 4 that can step in a pinch. He's the primary backup to Jahmyr Gibbs, where Craig Reynolds is the backup to David Montgomery. So if Gibbs ever goes down, Vaki can replace some of the pass-catching chops that Gibbs brings. Since he's stuck, though, at running back 3 or 4 for a while, I can't be too high on this, so I'll just give this one a C. Round 6, pick 189, Mekhi Wingo. Mentally, I'm choosing to flip the order of the day 3 picks. I'm choosing to believe the 6th round guys were taken in the 4th round and the 4th round guys were in the 6th round because I'm really excited about these 6th round guys, not just from the draft, like even now in retrospect, I'm super pumped for these guys. Mekhi Wingo slipped in the draft a little bit for being, a little undersized for an interior defensive lineman, but the Lions snagged him as an intriguing option as a situational pass rusher. Wingo showed good burst and quickness for, being a defensive lineman to be able to beat guards on the interior, generated a few pressures, and, he legitimately looks like an NFL level pass rusher. And he also showed, the ability to hold his own in the strength department. Run defense is a little bit of a work in progress, but unfortunately, his season came to an end following a knee injury in week 11. So, the hope for the sophomore season is that he can continue to build upon the flashes he showed as a rookie and kind of prove himself as a legitimate, stable, situational pass rusher and earns himself some more reps. He'll be competing with Levi Onwuzurike for that spot, but I think Wingo has the chops to do it. I'm going to give this one a B minus. For 6th round pick to get a situational pass rusher, very solid. Round 6, pick 210, Christian Mahogany. Okay, now we're talking. This is a pick that I was super high on immediately, and my lord, it actually panned out. Mahogany slipped in the draft for, I actually don't know why. I mean, he did have that illness in training camp in the start of the season, but I don't think that was around at the draft. So the Lions just get a really good guard prospect in the 6th round, and it immediately worked out. And not like immediately, but like by the end of the first year, worked out. I had hopes this guy would eventually develop into a starter. I had no idea that that would happen by the end of year 1. So after that illness that I mentioned, bit of a weird situation where he misses most of training camp and the start of the season, and he's on the NFI list. He comes back and he pretty quickly works himself to be the primary backup guard, kind of the swing left, right guard, it doesn't matter. And he also started a few times and looked really good, including the divisional round against Washington, where he was PFF, like PFF had him as the Lions' best player. That was the only thing that was positive to come out of that game. So, yeah. Heading into year 2, Mahogany looks like he's pretty much locked in as a starter, barring the Lions drafting a guard early in the draft this year. He looks like he could be a starter, and I wouldn't hate that at all. For a 6th round pick to become a starter by the end of his rookie season, granted because of injury, but play well enough in those spot starts to warrant not bringing the starter at that position back in free agency, that's wicked value. I'm going to give this an A, and I might not even be high enough on this pick. This legitimately could be an A+ pick. So there you have it. There is my regrading of all of the Lions draft class, well, all of Brad Holmes' Lions draft classes over the last 4 years. Let me know what you think of my grades down in the comments below, and leave your own if you're so inclined. I would love to hear from you. And also, let me know what kind of content you want to see on the channel going forward. I'll have some draft stuff, but after that, we're kind of in the lull of the offseason, so if there's any kind of Lions content you want, let me know. But that's going to be it for this video. Thank you so much for watching. Again, hit like if you enjoyed it. Subscribe if you loved it. Ring the notification bell so you don't miss any of the upcoming draft content. And enjoy your Easter weekend. And if you're watching this later in the week, after the weekend, hopefully you enjoy the NFL draft that is rapidly approaching. So I'll see you guys next time. Cheers.